All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 22nd webinar of the series this year. Today, we have the topic of VA planning, and our speakers are Jeff Marsacci and David Cole, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, this is Jeff Marsacci, the Plain English Attorney, and this is a special recording for the Estate Planning Source and their webinar. It's going to be on VA benefits, and we have with here one of the what I think is the top people in the country around these topics. It's David Cole of the Senior Veterans Council. He is a VA accredited agent, and he is also a certified Medicaid planner. And I'm sure in part of the discussion and presentation, we'll talk a little bit about how that may interact or overlap a little bit. But I'm going to let David go ahead, just introduce yourself and just give a little bit about your background and where you came from and how you're doing what you're doing now. What's your story?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am a privately accredited VA claims agent and certified Medicaid planner. I've actually been working with Jeff in his legal office for a number of years, coordinating his estate work and Medicaid work with VA benefits. And we'll get into this the accessing care and support around issues because the people that call us already are in crisis or know that they're headed that way with the need for assistance with uh, paying for care for either themselves or wife. They've reached the point where they need some assistance with some activities of ordinary daily living. I come out of the benefits business for years after leaving the Air Force as a bomb wing historian during the Vietnam era. Went into the benefits business working with employers for uh, medical, dental, retirement, pension plans, that sort of thing. Uh, Built up a employee benefits agency, sold it to Wells Fargo, moved myself out here to North Carolina in 2006. Shortly after that, met Jeff, started teaming up on combining the need for estate planning and benefit planning for people that are, reaching that point or concerned about it. And so it's been, yeah, a good partnership, and we think it all dovetails together, and we'll talk about that, I suppose, as we get into this discussion.
Okay. All right. Well, David, tell us a little bit about that VA pension aid and attendance benefit that people always hear about. And yeah, I know you've gotten just as many stories as I have, that people who really do need the care and the assistance, and they could be qualified. They simply call up the VA and say, "Oh, yeah, I heard about this aid and attendance benefit, this VA pension benefit. Uh, what do I need to do to get it?" And they ask a couple of phone call questions and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't qualify for it." And then they hang up and they say, "Well, okay, I don't have it." But the fact is, there are a lot more people out there who could qualify if they answered the questions the right way or rearranged a couple of
Mhm.
things. So please
Well,
go ahead and tell us
in
a little more
fact,
about that.
the VA itself uh, calls the VA pension benefit the least known, most underutilized benefit that they have. I think the name itself is somewhat confusing. People call it aid and attendance, but the official name with the VA is pension. And the name itself can cause a veteran or widow to say, well, my husband didn't retire from the military. Why would I even be thinking I could get a pension benefit from the VA? But the benefit itself goes all the way back to the founding of the country. Um, just a little history, the VA still has in its archives the actual letter written by George Washington to the Continental Congress after we won the Revolutionary War, beat the British. The Continental Congress had gathered again to just, one of the issues was how are we going to pay this ragtag army and this group of militiamen that won the war. And George Washington wrote a letter that said the degree to which we remember those who fought in this most recent conflict will measure the willingness of free men to fight in future conflicts, which is, he saw the future, I suppose. And um, another interesting side fact is that we didn't have any money in the country back then, so a lot of the compensation was land grants. And I have run into over the years a couple of families here in North Carolina that still have a piece of that land grant that was given as part of the original pensions. But today, the modern pension, as it's called, is based on the principle that says, the veteran was there, and these are the requirements. The veteran was there, served the country. You don't have to have been shot at or been in combat or been wounded, but the veteran was there during a period, a qualifying wartime period, which is typically World War II, Korea, Vietnam, or now the Gulf War. But the veteran was there when the country needed him, got out with an honorable discharge. In the case of the widow was married to the veteran at the time of his death. Doesn't have to have been married to the veteran while he served. Uh, but the veteran went on with his life, and now his widow has now reached a time where they need some assistance with some activities of ordinary daily living. You don't need to be an invalid, you don't need to be bedridden, but you clearly are getting up in years and you need some help. Um, and the other requirements are that your income for VA purposes is below the limit. We'll talk about that. And your assets are below the upper bright line limit, which is much higher than Medicaid. But if you got all those requirements, the country says, "Hey, you were there when we needed you. You need help, so let us have this benefit," which could be up to $2,700 a month for a married veteran, uh, 2,300 for a single veteran, about 1,500 for a widow. Here's a cash benefit that's paid right in addition to your Social Security check every month to help you pay for the care that you need now that you've gotten older. So that's the fundamentals of the pension aid and attendance benefit. Um, but again, it's complex around these rules, and that's what we serve as. Kind of like, as you said, if you called the IRS and said, "Hey, can I deduct an office in my home?" The answer would be, well, no. But if you call a professional advisor, an accountant, or CPA, they'll say, well, if you move a desk in your office, make some phone calls, maybe you can. So we're like serving that role in the VA landscape. You call the VA, you get an answer that may not be exactly accurate, where you come to us and we'll help you understand what can be done to qualify for the benefit that you earned by service to your country. So that's the overall pension aid and attendance. But by the way, we also work strongly in the other side of the coin with the VA, which is compensation for service connected. You actually did have an incident in the military that's affecting you today. So both sides of those broadly we work in addition to other VA areas.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about that income, and in particular, the phone calls people are making in, and the VA may be just saying, "Oh, you make too much money," and that's not necessarily the case. So let's go ahead. Tell us a little bit more about that income requirement.
Yeah. So the basic requirement is your income for VA purposes must be less than, to receive the maximum benefit, less than, in the case of a widow, for example, 1478 a month. Well, most widows are getting a Social Security check from their husband, and it exceeds that. So, how much do you make? Well, I make 1,800 a month. I'm sorry, you don't qualify. You're done. Okay, I don't qualify. I make too much money. No, no, no. The definition of what the VA does not bother to or take sometimes the time to tell you is the definition of income for VA purposes is your gross income, that $2,000 check, minus the cost of eligible care expenses. Well, what is that? Those words are all important and have meaning. Your income is your gross income. Pretty simple. What's my gross Social Security check? Well, what are my eligible care expenses? Well, it's not your typical living expenses, your rent and your credit cards and other ongoing expenses. It's care expenses. Oh, I don't have any care expenses. My daughter takes care of me. Okay, then you don't qualify. No, no, no. Work with your attorney and establish a compliant plan of care with your daughter, wherein you turn to your daughter and say something like, well, I know you love me. Thanks for all you do, but let me pay you, daughter, write you this check. I don't want to move into a nursing home right now or assisted living. I want to stay home, but let me hire you or contract with you to do this. And if arranged properly, that money will serve as an offset to the income, reducing your income and triggering the ability to get the benefit. So, um, yeah, income can be very tricky and often misunderstood, but there are rules that, just again, the IRS example was a good one, so that you can benefit from the program that you earned.
Right. Now, I just have to throw in the legal point because I know you get this all the time. Well, okay, well, my daughter's been caring for me for the last 3 years. Let's go ahead and pay her for those past 3 years. No,
Not
it's
going to work.
gotta be from the point you put together the agreement, the contract, and then
Right.
execute it moving forward. You can't go back. And we even see that in Medicaid when they're talking about a spend down because the kids have been taking care of them for years. Right. So, what about assets? There are some asset qualifications for that VA pension benefit as well.
The upper limit now is they call it the bright line is 156,000 of liquid assets. They don't count the home, the car, personal belongings, but they do look at CDs, checking savings, IRAs, investment accounts, stocks and bonds, gold bars that you've got saved up in the that all that money that you could lay your hands on. Does not count, interestingly enough, the cash value in a life insurance policy. Those rules changed a
Okay.
few years ago, but basically looking at your money that you could lay your hands on, pile up on the kitchen table, and it's 156,000. Oh, well, I've got 200,000. I guess I don't qualify. No, no, no. Again, there are provisions that where you can reposition that money, make adjustments to it to qualify. A very easy example, the little known, is that you could take that money and do home improvements, put money back into the home to pay down the debt. Uh, you certainly cannot gift money, much like you can't gift money with Medicaid. You can't make transfers without a full value, but the money can be repositioned to allow you to get there. You can, moving it to a trust is considered a gift if it's an irrevocable trust, and so there's a number of rules that oftentimes we see people with a half a million in assets that are able to reach that bright line by repositioning assets. Now, if you've got $1 million in assets, a lot harder, but certainly most people don't have that. So it can be a wonderful thing to be able to get that extra resource.
Yeah, sometimes it does take a little creativity and patience, but
Mhm. Mhm.
I know that we can get that done. Well, now, there's you also just touched upon this. What about service connected compensation? Tell us a little bit more about that, and especially since I believe we've got some new
Yeah,
legislation benefits that came out.
yeah, this is a big deal with the VA right now, especially with the passage of what's called the PAC Act. P like Papa, ACT. The PAC Act stands for Promise to Address the Contaminants and Toxins, passed in 2023. The VA itself calls that act the largest expansion of VA benefits in the history of the VA. It addresses what you just said, compensation for service connected. Um, no, I don't need right now any help with activities of daily living. But you know what? Yeah, I remember I jumped out of the airplane in training and fell hard, hurt my back, and didn't really say anything to anybody. But now years later, wow, I'm having trouble moving, or well, I'm right in the middle of a case right now with a veteran who jet mechanic, right? So he's working on the jet engine years ago during the Vietnam era. The engine falls off the jack, breaks his ankle. Oh, okay, patches it up, goes back to work. Years later, arthritis sets in, the limp sets in. We started off at a 20% disability. Now that this goes over a 15-year period, now he's limping because it's starting to affect the knee and the hip. And right, very shortly, I think we're going to finally, he's going to be at 100%. Now he's 78 years old, had to quit his job climbing around stairs and underneath basements as an appraiser because he just couldn't do it anymore. Um, and he will be at 100% service connected because with unemployability. Yeah, so much higher benefit without the rules of, it's not a mean vested benefit around income or assets, but it is compensation for that condition that you're going through now. And under the PAC Act, this toxins, a huge expansion around the Gulf War, burn pits.
Hmm.
I did it, that don't ignore. Don't be the tough guy that, Army strong, or I was a Marine. I don't want no help. I don't need no help. I don't want to be a sissy. I'm doing fine. No, no, no. Your wife knows or your kids know, Dad, you've got that, sleep apnea from exposure to Agent Orange. You've got these things going on, Dad. And they never talk about it maybe, but yeah, Agent Orange is huge. There's 19 different conditions that now that's been expanded, that if you served inside the country of Vietnam or off the coast of Vietnam on a ship, you were exposed to Agent Orange. The law is settled on that, and there are 19 different diseases: diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, colon, prostate, Parkinson's. If you've got the symptoms of those diseases, it was triggered by Agent Orange, and you are entitled to be compensated for that. Don't sit back and, yeah, don't do that. So give us a call and we'll help guide you to what's in the realm of the possible. That's service connected.
Right. So that in qualifying for those particular types of benefits, you mentioned there are some conditions that, look, if you were exposed to it and you have it, then all right, you've automatically at least met that requirement. Is that correct?
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
you've got the disease. Now it's a measure of what is the pain and suffering, or the accommodation you're making in your life as a result. I'll give you a good point. High blood pressure is on the list now, but you go you do what's called your CMP exam, and you take your blood pressure. Oh yeah, you've got high blood pressure. Oh, but I see you're taking your medication and it's controlled. It's down to 135 over 90. Okay, this is no benefit. Yes, you've got it. Yes, you will give you the award. It is service connected, which, by the way, does trigger a whole lot of benefits through the VA medical system that can be very
Hmm.
important. You'll get eligibility there. Oh, but we're not going to give you a check. There's no percentage disability, at least 10% to get a monthly check. But oh yeah, you've got the condition. But which is weird. So I suppose they expect you to get off your medication, have your blood pressure go up, and then you'll trigger the benefit. But to answer your question, yeah, the level of percentage ranges from 0 to or 10% of $200 a month, up to 100%, which could be 4,000 a month, and then some other ratings around activities of daily living that can be at a lot of different. It's complex, but compensation, pay attention, ask that question. Is there anything going on with you today that might be as a result of something that happened to you while you were in the military? That's what the thought
Right.
is.
And that's something that you can assist with.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So again, we're talking with the estate planning source and their professionals, and these may be things that some of their clients are experiencing or may be introduced to. You can certainly help them get whatever uh, particular types of benefits and the level of benefits that they're looking for. You understand the system and the paperwork that needs to be done.
Well, I would go on to say this because I was there with you at your presentation at the estate plan meetings, and thought you covered it well. But I would say this: it's one thing to be a meticulous, informed estate planner or financial planner and do the documents correctly, ask the right questions, plan ahead. It's another thing to be a an advisor that under because when you are everyone's headed. I sometimes say, "What's our business?" We're deaf and dying in America, preparing for that. Well, it's one thing to do a great job around your core profession, but it's another thing to say, "Are you aware that these benefits are available? That could provide this additional money to help pay for care and also the resources to receive that care around the other team that we've got the care assessment team that you've built.
Right.
Not the care, yeah, the care assistance team. So yeah, I would say yeah, it's good to ask these questions. It's good to let people know. Be a hero, and let people know about the benefits that they've earned.
Okay. Now, you did mention a little bit about the VA Regional Medical Center and some other particular types of benefits that might
Mhm.
be available. What are some of those?
Well, you get even a 0 or 10% rating, 100 access to the state of the art centers of excellence for care. It's not the VA of 20 years ago where that's where you go to die and they cut off the wrong leg. No, no, no. The latest surveys say that the VA medical system is now truly state of the art and receives superior ratings. And you're able to receive your care 100%, no deductible, no copay, at the local clinics that are being built near your home. You don't have to travel to the medical center, so you can receive great care. Hearing aids, like I just got, paid for by the VA, state of the art. $5,000 hearing aids as a result of the hearing loss you suffered while being around the jet engines or in the engine room or around those guns you fired on the firing range, and now years later you've got tinnitus or hearing loss. Um, all these other conditions, general medical care, and if you do need help, hey, my daughter is taking care of me, but hey, I want to give her some help. The VA Medical Center can provide and pay for aides to come out, and they can even pay your daughter, but or your wife, aides to come out, up to 20, 25 hours a week to take the load off of your family. Uh, so yeah, they're just, don't ignore those benefits that are separate and apart from the cash benefit.
Okay. Now, I know there's also some other potential benefits regarding transportation. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, when you say transportation, you can wheelchair, motorized scooters, adaptations for a car. They'll even purchase a van for you. But the actual transportation of getting you from your home to your appointment at the VA or doctor is not going to happen. They'll provide reimbursement for mileage, but
Hmm.
the actual transportation comes from an organization called the Disabled American Veterans, which you can call your
Oh,
local chapter and they'll arrange for the van to come pick you up and get you. They're great service. Uh, so transportation is an issue that, in my own mind, probably could be a little more support from the VA, but there are resources out there to get you from A to B where you need to be for your medical care.
okay. Well, now tell us a little bit about the actual care if we're getting to the point of skilled nursing care, because I know this is something that we end up having to look at anytime we're doing either a VA case, a Medicaid case involving a veteran or a veteran spouse. We have to look at all of these potential benefits. And yeah, there may be some skilled VA care available, but they may also at least want Medicaid as a potential option to plan for. Tell us a little bit around the
Yeah.
skilled care.
Well, really, as you're really coming to the estate meeting. That's the whole role here, of planning your estate. And if you're not looking at where you're headed, you know, the, if you don't die, yeah, great, you've got your estate plan. But if you when you don't die, you're going to get older, and as you get older, you're not going to get any stronger, and you're you're going to need help. Believe it or not, very few people get to 90 and then fall over. You fall apart, right? And as you get there, you're going to need some help. And yeah, the VA benefit, some home health care support, spending some of your assets, rearranging things. But when that day comes that you have the fall, the stroke, and now you're in a wheelchair, paralyzed on the left side, and you need assisted living at 7,000 a month, or skilled nursing at 12 to 15,000 a month. I don't know. You better have a whole lot of money, and your estate plan is not. You're gonna not going to get there. You're going to need these resources, and ultimately, you're going to need Medicaid, which is the biggest benefit of all, and is also a benefit that you earned by the hundreds of thousands in taxes you paid over the years. I think in the material that you have, Jeff, you talk about something called the Promise of America, which is some quotes by Lyndon Johnson, who signed that Great Society program, which, by the way, you dig into it, was why we ended up in the Vietnam. Anyway, there's a whole history behind that. But that the Medicaid program is not for the poor, the destitute. It's for those that I think it's for the educated, as you say, Jeff, that understand by making these maneuvers now, when the time comes, you can have access to have Medicaid pick up the cost and still preserve the vast majority of your assets. So that's why I think it's important to work with a certified Medicaid planner, or work with your attorney who has those resources and knowledge, so that you can pull all this stuff together. And I like your expression, Jeff, don't die broke.
Well, and this is something that I end up telling quite a few people. Look, the United States is not going to take our seniors and throw them out of the nursing homes on the streets to die, but they will do everything they can to make you more flat broke before they start paying.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it more complex to preserve what you have within the rules. And so people will just throw up their hands in frustration and go, oh, well, I might as well just spend everything down then. No, wait. There are professionals like us who do understand those rules. It can help them work within the rules to maintain and save as much as possible. And I guess this is probably a good place to talk about how these things with Medicaid and VA benefits will mesh. A lot of the preservation techniques that we work on together on cases qualify for the VA pension benefit also can kind of dovetail right in with what might
Hmm.
eventually be needed for Medicaid
Yeah.
planning. So typically, when we're analyzing a case, we're looking at all of those benefits together and what's the optimal plan to qualify for everything that we can.
Hmm. Yeah. That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. And so you do mention there's facility care through the VA for skilled nursing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, for skilled and for, we'll call it assisted living. The VA has a network of veterans homes that are subsidized by the VA, overseen by the VA, run by veterans for veterans. Uh, every state has different requirements and different numbers. Texas has like nine of them. Maine, I think, has one, or Maryland. In any event, there's a number of them. And if it was my dad, if it was my brother, if it was myself, that's where I'd want to be. Subsidized, more highly paid staff. The culture is there. The veterans are all playing bingo together. War, campaign caps on their heads, war posters on the wall, and yeah, great care. Now you can't chase the old ladies around, but that that's a wonderful option. And sometimes they're an hour and a half, 2 hour drive away. No, 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 I want dad nearby. Well, the VA has something called residential, they call it foster care. I don't like that name, but it's
Yeah.
a network of foster care homes, which are homes that are in a community, a wonderful. around here they're wonderful. They have to be within 30 miles of the medical center, but they can be closer to where you are, and they're run here locally. The cost for a great home with one or two or three veterans playing cards together, getting around, run by a nurse or a CNA is 2,000 a month. You're kidding me.
Mm.
Um, Another great option. You can't again need a catheter and a feeding tube and all that. You can't, but if you're an invalid and a wheelchair, you can get a lot of great care right there in a residential neighborhood and a residential group home. So those facilities are great to be aware of.
Yeah, and again, with the whole thing with dovetailing with potential Medicaid planning,
Hmm.
if it's still too far, if the family wants you to be closer and you want to be closer, this is where there are a lot more facilities that accept Medicaid than are
Hmm.
in the VA network, at least in terms of distance. So sometimes, even though they would qualify for any of those VA centered programs, they may still opt to look at nursing homes and look at the Medicaid route as a way to do it just to be closer to family. And I get that.
Yeah, and what happens is what prevents that is people hear the word Medicaid and think, oh, that's where you go to get lousy care, and I don't want to ever do that to my, I don't want to be ashamed of where my, no, no, no. There's some excellent skilled nursing, excellent assisted living that will accept Medicaid if you've done the planning, so that, yeah, there's a strategy to have to approach those and be able to have a Medicaid or assisted living facility that accepts Medicaid in full, and you preserve your assets, and it's right down the road. It's not, you know,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's critical, but get that planning done now is the key.
Yeah. And I'd also just like to put in there are a lot of other private pay facilities that cost a lot of money and the care
Mm,
may be lousy. It's
that's
all
true.
about
Yeah,
knowing what the
right.
facilities you
Mhm.
provide. All right, so we've got one last thing that I want to make sure we focus in on, and that's there are, and this is more on the estate end, private burial benefits, access to national cemetery, things like that. Tell
Mm.
us a little bit about those benefits that are also available.
Yeah, so the cash benefit to help pay for burial can range from 3,500 down to about $1,300 for the vet. There's nothing for the widow, by the way. The widow, there is no cash benefit, but there's the ability to be buried in a state cemetery at no cost with perpetual care, or Arlington. Every veteran can be buried in Arlington in the columbarium, which is where the remains are placed. If you're cremated, you won't get burial in the ground, but if you're cremated, the columbarium is available to veterans with all the honors and all the stuff you see. And there's that small cash benefit. And then, like as I said, there's the state cemetery in every state. So those can be great options. Before we leave here, Jeff, we do have, the cost of living increases coming the end of the year. For the VA, that increase will take place in the December check. It's expected to be about 2.5%. For Social Security, it'll take place in January. But the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. They're going to also raise the cost of Medicare Part B. And when that adjustment happens, if anybody does have a veteran or widow on the VA benefit, you'll notice that when the Social Security check goes up, the VA benefit goes down, but there's ways to adjust that. So when you do get to the end of the year, if you get calls from people that say, well, my check went down, I thought I was getting an increase, give us a call and we can talk to those people about how to restore that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit. So we're going to end the recording there. But just before we do that, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So you could call the office at 1-800 825 1300. That's it. Yeah, 1-800-825-1300. My extension is 328. You can leave a message there. If you want to call me direct, my voicemail message text
Well,
line. Oh,
this may end up going on YouTube, so let's just keep it at your business one for
yeah, the business
now.
line. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good deal. Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
and
best
if
way.
you call that business line and you are one of the professionals in the estate planning source network, at that point, David can give you some direct
Yeah.
lines to him for those particular types of questions for your
Mhm.
clients.
Yep. Yep.
All right, and we'll also drop something into the video on the website that you can get some more information. And again, I'd like to thank David Cole for being with us, and I hope that everybody got an awful lot out of this. If you do have questions, give David a call with the Senior Veterans Council. All
Great.
right, so as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, perfect. And then we do have David Cole here to answer any questions. So if you have any, go ahead and add those into the chat and we'll kind of go over those and answer anything that you have.
On your to be filed is.
We'll just give a couple minutes because sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. So.
All right. First name Gerald.
All right, doesn't look like that we have anything. I do want to just take a moment and thank you, David Cole, for joining us, Jeff as well, even though he's not on right now. And then everybody who did join us, thank you for joining us. And I look forward to seeing everybody next month as well.
Yeah. I have one when you lost checks with. Wow.